As you can tell, it's obviously like the middle of the night here. I got requests to make a Guardian DPS video. I'm going to show you 2 DPS builds, and I don't do yellow, so please don't ask me to make a video. I hate yellow line. Yes, it has a lot of area effect damage. It also has a lot of really good debuffs, and it is an excellent off tank. I personally just feel like it is way too slow, and it's kind of like the champion to me, where the champion is clunky and it doesn't have, where it feels like it doesn't have flow to me, and that's the same for yellow line. It's clunky and feels like it doesn't have flow. And the issue that I have with it is what a lot of people have issue with on the captain, and the captain is people feel like it is you're sitting there waiting for cooldowns of attacks, and that's me with Yellow Line Guardian, where in my red line I utilize some of the things such as War Chant minus cooldown to not have that clunkiness and not have that cooldown. So this is my main sort of setup that I have here. As you can see, I have my taunts here, slows here, my parry skill line here, and then also my redirect there. So I will first show you the first thing that I'd like to talk about and point out is just a couple of very slight things that I have, and it's in both of the builds, and so the armor and the weapons are generally going to be the same. The only thing you might want to change probably on the weapon is you might want to put on what's the skill called? Brutal Assault. If you like that, so that spamminess. Another thing you can do, there is actually a setting that can go in any of these 3 spots. So it can go in your setting, your gem, or your rune. So you might want to replace your rune, for example, or your gem. Definitely not that West Emmett setting of endings, because Redline Guardian, sure, it does damage, but it is all about the crits, and that's why it is really good in PvP, because its crit damage is insane. I am currently doing maybe about triple crit damage. It can go up to, you can get up to like quadruple, or like 4.5 times. So it can go pretty high up. So as you can see, I have about 20% crit chance, and I'm going to get that up to 25 or 30% or whatever it is. And then I have my 30% finesse, and I don't have a single finesse essence slotted. My physical mastery is a little bit low. I can get it, the Redline Guardian can get physical mastery up to 215%, because it has just a 15% damage increase, period. So you can go way up. This 184% is including my rank 10, or my rank 11 bonus, so that's a plus 10%. And is also including, let's see, just Eyes and Deep Outposts right now. So that's just, that'll change a little bit as we go around. Then we also have, as you can tell, I don't really have like a lot of mitts, but they're existent. They're both about like around that little bit under 20% for PvP. As you can tell, I don't have as much, good quote-unquote gear as I had on my my tank video, and that is that's just because I give all my gear and all that crap away to people. So, but these are all 418. For PvP, I really like using this essence, the Gondor essence, the Stunned Silence, and just because it's just a chance at stunning something. It's also nice when you're doing PvE, maybe not raids. So I have one of my trigger essences. This is the Beneficence one. So it increases crit rating, and then on a heal, there's a 25% chance of gaining 25% crit chance. If you're playing a DPS in a raid, you're probably not going to get any heals. However, Guardian does have their Warrior's Heart, right? Thrill the Danger, which is the reason why I have this, and I'll explain that. And then you have your Catch Your Breath. But Redline Guardian has a lot of self heals. As you can tell, I do not have the one that combos Honorable Combat, that combos with Sweeping Cut, because to me that's pointless. 15% is garbage compared to, 35%, literally 100%, and 1.5 or 3 or 2.5% or whatever every time you get hit. So 15% is nothing. I have Reflect from Yellow Line, 35% Reflect, so usually I will combo those two. Thrill to Danger and Redirect to, make me tanky when I get low, and then basically full heal me with all the hits. And then that is generally when the crit chance is going to go up because with those tons of heals, because every time you get healed, there's a 25% chance of raising your crit chance for 10 seconds. So I basically count all these trigger essences as quote-unquote guarantees in the long run. So in the long run, if you use Thrill to Danger, chances are you're going to get plus 5% crit chance, right? So just expect that. And then the other one is I have an additional plus 25% crit chance, and this is the Fury Essence. Precise Strikers trigger essence, just more crit chance, because the Guardian in Redline is crit everything. You want to crit everything. And so if you can have a 30% crit chance or 40% crit chance, that's awesome. And the reason I have the Devastate magnitude, because it also increases your crit magnitude, is so that I can sit here, and so instead of having a 21.8% crit Devastate magnitude, that's a plus 15. Redline Guardian already gets a plus 15%, so you're sitting here on a plus 30%, so that's already a 50%, and that's why I'm doing triple damage of a skill. For example, Hammer Down, 65 to 100, basically 100k. Hit that hammer down, boom, you're hitting for, you get a devastated hit, you're hitting for 300k. If not, you're hitting more than 300k. Obviously, right, I can raise all this stuff. Let's look at the first build. So, got all these, right? Raise your little bit, damage a little bit. If you're in a raid, raise the whole raid's melee damage. There's that 10% crit multiplier, and then there's another. Oh, actually, it's 20%. So there you go. You get a 55% crit multiplier, and 15% melee damage. So that's just even better. As you can see, another heal when you get a critical hit with your block and parry, so that's another chance your thing. A little bit of parry, I don't really, I put enough points in there to, go forward, but generally, if you're going to DPS, you're not going to be parrying things. Plus 5% damage, Sweeping Cut, Thrust, Brutal Assault. I do not have the points into this, but I will show you that rune whatever that I talked about earlier, and you could put a bunch of points into all your 5 points into Tireless Blows, for example, and maybe not have your points into your Redirect, or your points into a couple points into Tenderize or something, right? And you could basically use it to just constantly keep throwing up Brutal Assault, essentially. And I'll show you how to do that. I'm currently working on weapons for that, so I will have a fourth build here. To the King, right? It basically, it just gives you an additional 10% melee damage, right? So you just want to keep that all the way up, all up, and attack speed makes you go faster. Warrior's Fortitude, I like that. Fun fact, if you have 2 different Warrior's Fortitudes, they do not stack. It will only do the one. So I originally had points into here, and I had to redo it because I noticed that it didn't actually give you the bonuses for both of them, which is unfortunate. And then Hammer Down. I don't have an Honorable Combat because, honestly, 15% is nothing. In a boss fight, you'll be hitting it on one boss, so 3% is terrible. So you might as well just have this, because you would have your 1.5 or 2.5% or whatever every time you get hit, so that already beats that out. So I'll run in here, and generally this is kind of like how I like to start it. So a brutal charge generally is going to how I'm going to start a fight, because you want, for me, I want my cooldowns, my longer cooldowns, to be available sooner. So if I can sit down and use that, that's what I will do. So I'm going to run in here, and yeah, unfortunately there's no keep that is available. In PvP, sometimes I will, if I'm using it for PvP, I will pop this skill because it will stun all the enemies that are on the first hit, which is great. But generally I'm going to go, boom, hammer down, right? See there, 100k. Remember to use your animation cancels, right? So here's my heal. Okay, so that's going to start healing me up, unless the stun, yeah, the stun, getting stunned at that exact moment glitched it, which is unfortunate. But as you can see, right, it's generally pretty fast. I like to use Brutal Assault and then immediately use Stamp on that, so that we can have our, so you can have your hit at the, you can have that long animation not occur. Just grabbing all these NPCs that we can. Hopefully this will get back up here. Let's get this up. Alright, so we got a little bit more damage, etc. So, boom, yeah, see, look, all those guys just got stunned, right? I like to use that skill as well a lot. There's a 100k hit, right? And you're not going to get 150k, right? You're not going to get huge, massive numbers, right? But you will regularly get to 100k, 200k. Notice, as you can see, 35k DPS, right? Most of your DPS is going to be in area of effect, so you're in area of effect fights, you're far more effective, at least with this build. This is the one that I used in doing tier 3 raids, side bosses, unfortunately. But as you can see, right, that DPS number jumps way the heck up when you start throwing those area of effect attacks in. Let's do this, right? Basically guaranteed crit chance, plus an additional 10%. Boom, 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 right? See, as you can see right there, just huge numbers, right? Very, pretty decent, in all honesty. And I like using Brutal Charge as much as possible when I'm in a fight, right? There's 57, 57k DPS. On Training Dummy, I can get up to 75k pretty easily on a single target. It's just all about getting all your bleeds up and all that stuff onto your enemy, which is the most important thing every single day at 1-7. Is the most important thing that you can do. In all honesty, is keep those buffs and keep those bleeds on everything. So, and that'll ramp your DPS up, right? Because you have 4 essentially 20k bleeds, which are, that's not hot, that's not small, but like once they start critting, right? Oh, and you're critting for triple damage. So, because I guess dots and heals do not have a, this is a cool thing, they do not have a Devastate version. When they crit, it will crit for the Devastate damage, and I'm pretty sure this is intended because it's been for quite a long time. So, like, normal skills, right? So, classes with bleeds, if you raise your crit chance and your Devastate damage, right, that is going to affect those. So, when I hit, right, because I have my legacies, right, the bleed critical damage, and then the bleed base damage, right? So that's another 70% crit damage, okay? So on top of that, right, you add that 20% crit multiplier, right? And then you add, because I have 2 of these West Emnet settings of ending, you add another 15% on top of that. And then, because you have my super high crit rating, right, there's another 22%. So that's like 100 and, let's see, 70% plus 21, right? There's, and then plus the 15, right? 105%. Right, so here's my other build, and I really like this one. As you can tell, I have the 1 point into Tireless Blows. I have 6 points into 2 the Rescue, and I'll explain that in a minute. And pretty much everything else is the same. Minus having the heal from Bring on the Pain. My reasoning is I want the heal from Skill Deflection. From parrying an attack, it will heal. It will heal you in PvP, PvE, whatever, right? And that'll be your 5% crit that you'll be having instead of when you use Throw the Danger. So it'll be a little less frequent, but it will also be, but you don't ruin your heal from Thrill the Battle, so you can still have that. It just be a little bit less. Obviously, you could take this point in Tireless Blows and put it into Honorable Combat, right, and use that to proc the 50% or the 5% crit. No crit chance. Don't use Sting. Don't use Sting. Don't use Sting. Do not use Sting. Do not use Sting. If you're trying to DPS, don't use Sting. Okay? I do not have to tell you that 800 million more times. Do not use Sting. And then I have more area effect damage, so my Sweeping Cut is going to do a chunk. A little chunk more. This area effect one will do more. So how I like to start off with this one, obviously Brutal Charge. But now you definitely have, 10% melee damage, you will knock down that first target, and you have 100% crit chance. But what else do you have a big cooldown on? Oh, that's right, you get a big cooldown on Hammer Down. That hits for 100k. You want to crit on that, that's going to hit for 300k, almost, 250k. Right? So you generally, that's what I like to do. I just have Thrill the Danger for the power. You can obviously like put this into other things. Okay, it's 2 points, so I mean, you could put this into anything really, right? You could put it into 2 points into this, 2 points into this. The only reason I have that is because in the Shelob raid, you need power. And if you're the one getting attacked, you need that power. And it's just nice to have. See, there's 100k heal. Right, get all these guys here. I know it's probably not as much as you'd all like to see, but this is what we got. Boom! Big hit, guaranteed critical hit. Right, there's a bunch of 30k, 30k, 30k. Keep in mind, in this build, you do not have Reflect. You do not have that little tiny heal, or the 2% heal on hit. It's purely for damage, right? So there we go, a bunch of NPCs, 47k. I will change this right now. So I had the tanking ones from the tanking video still. So, well, that would be good too. So Wit, Zeal, right? So extra crit, extra crit. You're going to want Confidence and not Honesty. Valor, right? Is there any? Huh. Justice. Probably go with... Yeah, I'm going to say go with Idealism. Because... Yeah, go with Idealism because that Fate is just a little bit extra crit. So this is what I have generally for both of them. Let's check out the other one. The other one I think I have Justice or whatever instead. Yeah, see, I have Justice instead. Just because this is my more survivable PvP build, and yeah, I know, 100, blah, 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 right? Double it, you know, it goes up. I don't worry too much about it, though. So there's all that. I can't believe I screwed that up. Do you see that? That's like a bush. Okay, I've never noticed that before. That's... Alright. The Dole Amroth ones is another 10% bleed damage, which might also be worth it, especially if you stacked it with the other 10%, right? So there'd be another 20% bleed damage. So you'd be doing a base extra 60% bleed damage, so your bleed damage would be even higher. So you probably have like 25k ticks without crit, and then with a crit, it'd be like 75k. So you have 4 of those, so I mean, that'll hurt. That will definitely hurt. But here's that insignia, right, that I talked about. So To the King has a chance to initiate a parry response. So you put 2 of those on. Every 3rd time you use To the King, you get a parry response, which is great because now you don't have to you don't have to worry about force opening, you don't have to worry about putting out those 5 points into the parry, right? You don't have to worry about things actually having to hit you for you to always have a parry response up, because you'll have force opening and you'll have your To the King plus 50%. However, you need to decide if it's worth getting rid of that 2,000 might, right? And it might be, right? 2,000 might, not a huge amount. Is it worth 4,000 might? Is it worth 1,600 physical mastery? Right? You get to decide that.